Nigerians seek divine intervention to overcome COVID-19 as confirmed cases escalate.
Talking about social distancing, which we are observing rather well, it does not mean distance from God.
Flood ravages parts of Ogun State as the rains gain momentum.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss Nigeria's energy resources and their utilization.
Energy is fundamental to socio-economic development and plays a vital role in eradicating poverty and guaranteeing economic security of any nation.
Now, there's no doubt about that because energy from various sources powers small and medium-scale enterprises, which over time have been identified as key drivers of economic growth and development.
And energy also fuels production activities in key aspects of the economy, such as agriculture, commerce, manufacturing, industry, and mining, just to mention a few.
And much as energy facilitates socio-economic growth, lack of access to energy accounts for the level of poverty and deprivation in the land, as well as the much reported economic decline.
Some statistics from the Council for Renewable Energy of Nigeria indicate that electric power cuts in the country result to a huge income loss of about $1 billion annually.
And for an economy that relies heavily on fossil fuel, that's petroleum, other energy sources over time are underutilized, such as gas, for which the country is reputed to have some proven reserves estimated at 200 trillion cubic feet, begging to be utilized.
Indeed, begging to be utilized. And many scholars have argued that since Nigeria's energy options range from hydroelectric to solar, wind, tidal, biomass, and gas resources, there is a compelling need to harness these resources and chart a new energy future for Nigeria.
Good enough, the present administration is thinking along that line, as typified by the recent flag-off of the 614-kilometer Ajaokuta-Kaduna and Kano gas pipeline project. It's also known as AKK, and the flag-off was by President Muhammadu Buhari.
And with the inauguration coming 12 years after the project was initially conceived, experts anticipate that the AKK project, as it's now named, may just be a game changer for Nigeria's energy sector.
Already, the benefits of the project, that's potential benefits, have been listed by officials of the administration. And those benefits include the potential to generate additional 4,000 megawatts of power and over 3 million jobs to be created, rapid development of domestic utilization of gas, rejuvenation of the moribund textile industry, production of fertilizer, and marked improvement in the petrochemical subsector.
And we also hear that the pipeline, which starts from Ajaokuta in Kogi State and runs through Abuja, Niger, Kaduna, and terminate in Kano State, will be linked with existing domestic infrastructure. Some energy experts, however, advocate economic commitment and the political will to set it through the completion.
So, what are Nigeria's alternative energy options, and how can they be effectively and efficiently utilized for national growth and development? We have already assembled a number of guests who will respond to those issues, in particular the key messages to be derived from the AKK project and what should keep it going. I'm Kingsley Osadolo, welcoming you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And we are broadcasting from the nation's capital, Abuja.
Well, I'm Kirian Umar. Many thanks for joining us. The morning news comes in a moment, and we will also be serving you with the complimentary segments in the course of today's edition of the program. Nolin Abel Ame is ready seated for the Good Morning News. Nolin.
Good morning, Kirian and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has condemned what he calls a dastardly attack by Boko Haram terrorists on United Nations aid helicopter in the northeast, describing it as cowardly and yet another desperate rearguard action by the terrorist group who have been under intense pressure from the Nigerian military recently. In a statement, the president reassures the international community and Nigerians that the latest attack, which claimed the lives of 2 people, including a 5-year-old baby, would not go without severe consequences. The president stresses further that security of foreigners and Nigerian citizens remain top priority of government, and everything necessary will be done to eliminate the remorseless enemies of humanity. He appeals to all humanitarian and other aid workers in the region to at all times properly coordinate movements with the theater commander and other military authorities. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced over 500 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. These 544 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in 18 states, and the FCT brings the total number of confirmed cases to 28,711 in the country. Of the 544 new cases, Lagos has 199, Ebonyi 65, Oyo 47, Ondo 46, Ogun 31, Edo 30, and the FCT has 28 new cases. Katsina also recorded 25 new cases, Plateau 15, Bayelsa 11, and Adamawa have 10 new cases each. Akwa Ibom has 8, Gombe 7, Kano 4, Taraba 3, with 2 each in Rivers and Abia states, while Ekiti recorded only 1 case. Lagos still leads the COVID-19 chart in Nigeria with a total of 11,244 cases, followed by the FCT with 2,181 cases, while Oyo comes third with 1,513 cases. There are now 11,665 recovered and discharged COVID-19 patients, with 645 deaths on record. COVID-19 pandemic is one that had religious bodies in Nigeria worried, and many have sought divine intervention to combat the global scourge. The Nigeria Inter-Religious Council, in another display of faith, organized national prayers in Abuja to seek the face of God over the pandemic.
The first one, stay at home. If you have no business leaving your house, stay at home. It's scriptural. And I see a lot of Christians exhibiting reckless confidence. And the Bible describes them as fools. Second, if you have every genuine reason to go out of your home, as mandatory, wear a face mask.
Talking about social distancing, which we are observing rather well, it does not mean distance from God, or to come to God only when there is fire on the mountain. Neither does it mean that we pray so much to God, whom we cannot see, but neglect to do good to the neighbors we see.
In the meantime, the COVID-19 task force team in Cross River State has cautioned residents along the state's boundaries that the ease of the nationwide lockdown on interstate travels is not an excuse for careless lifestyles devoid of the NCDC protocols on COVID-19. The caution was part of the team's message to churches in Calabar during a COVID-19 preventive protocols compliance check in the state.
If you find any signs or symptoms, whether within yourself or someone around you, please immediately go and get tested free of charge.
The Nigerian Army is intensifying efforts on non-kinetic operations to further improve communication with the public. Chief of the Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, stated this in a message at the distribution of COVID-19 palliatives to the people of Kauran Namoda in Zamfara State as part of activities marking 2020 Army Day celebration and 157 years anniversary.
Which is part of our civil-military cooperation-related activities and quick impact projects, is taking place simultaneously in various parts of the country in support of the civil populace.
In parts of the country, particularly in Ogun State, residents along flood-prone areas in the capital, Abeokuta, are counting their losses. On a tour of the affected areas, the former state governor and senator representing Ogun Central Senatorial District, Ibikunle Amosun, expressed sadness at the level of damage and devastation. Places inspected include Timidre, Omoshilasho, and Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library. He commiserated with the victims of the flood and assured the affected residents that respite will soon come their way. That's the morning news for now. The program continues with Kinsley and Kieran after this break. Good morning.
Main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Close Up Deep Action with antibacterial formula and deep cleaning gel keeps your teeth clean and protected. Close Up Deep Action. Enjoy long-lasting fresh breath and more.
In this time of despair, our country, Nigeria, needs us now more than ever. We stand a chance to save our great country, Nigeria. A chance to rise up from this pandemic stronger and better. What will be the gain if we do not learn from other countries and observe the lockdown to stop the further spread of the virus? If we loosen our guards and allow this virus doom our very existence, then what have we gained? This is the call to every Nigerian to unite as one and stop the spread of this deadly virus. Stay at home and stay safe. Remember, the virus doesn't move unless we move. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white cloths, towels, and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it. Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white cloths, towels, and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Chowder, non-stop. Non-stop chowder. Let's go.
Oh, stop. They are germs. You'll fall sick. Daughter, why don't you stop them?
Mom, stopping the kids from playing stops the learning. That's why we stop the germs.
Indeed, Safeguard fights against germs. Safeguard removes 99% of germs.
Why don't you stop them? We have to stop. Not the kids, but...
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take some business news, and here is our correspondent, Chimaobi Watanaji.
Before the upsurge of the global pandemic, Nigeria's economy was already on its way to achieving single-digit inflation rate, but this was scuttled with the global recession due to COVID-19 and a crash of oil prices, putting pressure on the naira and the local economy. World Bank Country Director for Nigeria, Shubham Chaudhary, says the single-digit inflation is achievable for Nigeria, but policymakers need to prioritize expenditures and focus attention on price stability and control.
I think in the middle of a COVID crisis, with all the disruption that it has caused, I think it will be more challenging to bring inflation down, but not impossible. One of the things is, oil prices are low, and oil often feeds into the prices of other things because of the cost of transportation, things like that. So that's a good thing. On the other hand, the disruptions to supply chains and the fact that it's taking longer to get actually goods on time and you have to take more care will add to the inflation pressures on the upside.
In another development, the federal government is developing a sustainable model that will encourage local production of automobiles in the country through building 3 industrial parks in the country to strengthen the sector through a public-private partnership arrangement.
A couple of days ago, we met with UNIDO. We met with a number of other stakeholders, Bank of Industry, to see how we can move forward and finance these projects, because we envision them to be PPP. But nonetheless, we have already actually started the preliminary construction of the facilities at these parks. So government is showing commitment, and then hopefully this will show how serious this administration is to Nigerians and to the global community, that we are ready for business, that we're ready to improve and produce local components that go into automobiles.
With business news, I'm Chimaobi Watanaji.
Thank you, Chimaobi, for that report. Next is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Baya Toebe, is with us in the studios this morning. Baya, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley.
Yeah, thank you, Baya, for coming.
Good morning.
Let's start
with you had a pleasant weekend.
Very restful, thank you.
All right.
Let's begin with the leadership newspaper from top to bottom. In major shake-up, NNPC redeploys top management staff, makes new appointments. And then COVID-19, the lead story, more states suffer drop in internal revenue. There are several riders to that. At national prayer, SGF Christian leaders seek God's intervention, caution Nigerians against reckless confidence. Global daily figure hits 212,000. Madagascar imposes lockdown. Reopening of schools premature, says ANAC think tank. Ghanaian president goes into self-isolation. Benue Varsity DVC, Zamfara NCDC supervisor die of the virus. Police arrest 121 for violating face mask order in Akwa Ibom. COVID donates 1.4 billion naira medical equipment, 26,000 test kits to NCDC. Oyo, Lagos discharge 147 patients. PMB vows decisive action against Boko Haram over attack on helicopter. That's on page 6. Now, at the bottom, after Shippers Council intervention, 320 trapped cargoes ready for export. 27 is where you get the story. Kogi Kickstarters livestock transformation, or Kogi Kickstarts livestock transformation project. It's on page 2. Fidelity Bank appoints Mustafa Chike Obi as chairman. SARS statement on ending Boko Haram misinterpreted. That's on page 35.
All right, so we'll take a look at the Punch newspaper. Punch above the nameplate says reps summon banks and others over $30 billion forex racketeering. That's on page 34. Try me if my alleged link with Hush Puppy is proved. That's according to Dogara, former Speaker of the House of Representatives. Ngige approved 3.4 billion naira NSITF training fund, says management. That's page 39. Wadumen, killer soldiers can't face terrorism charge before court-martial, says Falono. Details on page 11. And late stories on politics says APC power blocks shift battle for party's control to states. APC power blocks shift battle for party's control to states. With two riders, Zamfara, Ondo, and Imo warring groups defy Buhari's order to withdraw suits. Party to revisit membership register without former and recent defectors' names. And the photographs you see on the front page there of the paper says cross-section of Christian worshippers during a joint National Day of Prayers against COVID-19 at the National Ecumenical Center in Abuja, and that was yesterday. 632 students fail by exams, says law school. Details on page 8. COVID-19 kills NCDC supervisor, task force vice chair, and former Lasimra boss. Details on page 9. I have no regrets reconciling with bandits, according to Matawale, governor of Zamfara. Reps plan tough laws against FCT baby factories. That's page 8. 21 missing in Benue boat accident. And Lagos toll rises to 7. 75 insurgents, bandits, and soldiers killed in June. That's attributed to Defense Headquarters. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Well, let's start with COVID-19. As of today, Nigeria has now 28,711 cases. Over the weekend, the last time we were here on Friday, Friday there was 454 cases, Saturday 603, and on Sunday 544. Comparatively, this week it was lower than the previous week. So this week, between Friday and now, we have had 1,601 cases, and 29 deaths have been registered since Friday, bringing the total number of our competitors that have died to 645. But yesterday, Ebonyi registered 65, which is the second highest after Lagos. Lagos had 199. Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi is one of those who has tested positive. He has gone into isolation and has handed over to his deputy, Eric Igwe. Governor Umahi is the 7th governor to test positive. In Benue, the wife of the governor, Eunice Autumn, has tested positive. But COVID-19 is seriously ravaging at the cabinet level. Secretary to the state government is tested positive. Chief of staff is tested positive. The head of service has also tested positive. And so also is the vice chancellor, Benue State University. The World Health Organization has warned that as nations begin to ease down, so will we begin to see the increase in number of cases. So this is, we've just passed the first 4 weeks of our ease of lockdown. We are now getting into the second week of ease of lockdown. So the spiking in the number is expected. Our expectation is that we hope it will peak very quickly and begin to bring down the curve.
My worry actually is on the high places, you know, because from the governmental level, we should be knowledgeable enough to, you know, take the precautionary measures, which are the protocols, you know, put in place. But somehow it is getting into government quarters at very highest echelon of governance. getting chief of staff, governor, governor's wife, staff, secretary of state government, and what have you. So I just wonder, did some people relax the distancing aspect of face mask aspect of this? Because I have been to some offices lately, and I keep warning some staff that I see, but they're all just moving bad, just as if nothing is happening. And I would say, look, where is your face mask? He said, well, I have it in my pocket. Say, it's not meant to be in your pocket, you know. It's meant to be your face, covering your nose and your... So I was really worried that many people are not adhering to that simple protocol of wearing masks. A mask is everywhere now. It's not expensive. You know?
There is a medical explanation for that. The medical experts say that high personalities that are testing positive is not unusual. It's because of their status and the media reported. That is why it is appearing as if it is unusual. It is often said that when beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blame for the death of princes. That's exactly what is happening.
But they must have come in contact with somebody who has it.
Certainly, if you have a chief executive of a state who is the arrowhead for fighting the war of COVID-19.
And who doesn't wear masks?
Look at governor of Delta State, for instance. He's a medical doctor. He knows all the protection and the protocol, but he is the arrowhead of fighting the war, and unfortunately, he became a victim. It goes to emphasize that COVID-19 is no respecter of person, and it is everywhere.
That is true. I mean, just to restate the point, COVID-19 is a respiratory tract infection in the first instance. I'm curious, if we were to pursue your argument logically, are we likely to say that before COVID-19, those in government house or even at the presidential villa, did they suffer from common colds?
You know, I'm talking about exposure. Yes. Right. I'm talking about exposure. You know, a governor, for instance, should wear a mask. I know there are people in government that don't want to wear the mask in the first place. Because if you wear the mask, you have some level of protection. That's what I mean. That's why a governor doesn't make you to be moving around, you know, among people without wearing the mask.
Without protection. That point is noted. But after all, those who are in government house, they are human beings. They are only there temporarily. But it re-emphasizes the need for people to follow the prescribed protocols, wearing a face mask, using hand sanitizer, washing your hands regularly. And the risk that we all face now is that virtually everybody has relaxed. I don't know what the situation is elsewhere around the country, but here in the Federal Capital Territory, it's just alarming. If you have a face mask, you look very odd amongst several other persons. People are just going about their normal business, believing that the fact that we are back to normal means that coronavirus is no longer in the air. And daily, you keep hearing reports of persons who have died on account of coronavirus, and some of them are prominent Nigerians.
Yes. And that is what the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the chairman of the PTF, emphasized, that Nigerians are exhibiting reckless confidence. Like he described, now everywhere you go, people abandon wearing their face masks. And even when scripturally, and he said, if you have no business going out, stay at home. And he says this is scriptural. He adds, I see a lot of Christians exhibiting reckless confidence, and the Bible describes them as fools. When there is danger and you have warned about it, and you abandon all caution, then you are behaving very foolishly.
Absolutely.
And so our people must uphold that. The other concern is the UN helicopter that was attacked. One must praise the vigilance of the crew, particularly the pilot crew. They were heading for Damasak when they were shot at, but they managed to manage the plane across 150 kilometers back to Maiduguri and landed safely. But those that were killed, they were killed on the ground. And that is why the president has asserted that even in conventional war, humanitarian agencies, UN, Red Cross, health officials, journalists are not supposed to be touched.
No, terrorists don't.
But we are dealing with criminals.
Terrorists don't reason that way. What I even worry about that is that they have the capacity to fire, surface-to-air missile. And I mean, if they have that capacity, then it is threatening indeed. If they can aim at a helicopter, I don't know the kind of ammunition or whatever armament or something that they use. So it means that they are somehow equipped to that level.
The curiosity is fine. I mean, there are frequent reports of sorties undertaken by the Nigerian Air Force, taking out the camps of Boko Haram terrorists, destroying their armories, and so on and so forth. And yet, it appears that Boko Haram almost has an endless supply of arms and ammunition. Where is this coming from?
That's a big question.
Where is it coming from? Because unless we interrogate that, we just keep, it's like you are mopping the floor. In the meantime, the faucet of the tap is turned on. So you keep mopping and then mopping and mopping. Where are the arms coming from? So are we able to embark on interdiction of those sources? Are we able to take out those sources rather than waiting for them to, as it were, encamp and then you go and strafe their various locations? Because for them to have these rocket launchers, they had it in the past, it was so reported, but to have taken aim at a UN helicopter means that virtually any other aircraft can be targeted. Yes.
There's news about schools resuming in Oyo State today, and they put in a lot of protocols. Prior to this resumption, staff, management are supposed to have been put seriously under training, but they have expressed serious concern about COVID-19 protocols, and they are insisting that for now, it is only those in primary 6, JSS 3, SS 3 that are to resume. Those in boarding were supposed to have reported in school yesterday. Those other ones, they will all report today. But the COVID-19 protocols are very, very strict. And they also have appointed a warden. His role would be that in the event of any student being spotted to have tested positive or any symptoms, his duty will be to immediately send that student.
The boarding school aspect of it is what is worrying. Boarding now. Students. I mean, they're not going to wear masks living in the boarding school. I mean,
no. One of the rules is compulsory wearing of masks for all students.
How much? See, how boarding is. Boarding school is. How bad. So some have a double-decker stuff, and the mixing of students. Normally, they go to a refectory together to eat and what have you. Will you eat with your mask, on? So these are the questions, because, it's easier said than done when people want to live their normal life, especially the young people like that, how can they manage that kind of distancing in a boarding school?
No, but the example appears to be different from what was initially prescribed, that those who should resume are those who are in their graduating classes.
Yes.
And that these will be strictly day students, and that no boarding facilities will be open in the meantime. Because as Kieran just explained, and we all know, when we were in boarding school, you had double-decker beds and so on and so forth, and you could be interacting there at the end of all kinds of things, where we play around. How much protocol, can you observe in the boarding environment? It's different if you are a day student. You come for the regular hours of classes, that is, and the pupils are fewer in number, by the way. And so you can immediately, disinfect your hands and then return to your family. But there's a related story to that in terms of schools reopening, because it's part of the rationale for having schools to reopen. And the story is on page 11 of the Punch newspapers. It says, WAEC disowns viral WASC timetable. It says the West African Examinations Council has advised Nigerians to disregard the timetable for the 2020-21 senior secondary examination circulating online. The official indicated that the timetable circulating was not from the examination body.
Yes, it is in fact the Public Relations Officer, Davian Ogiogu, who made that pronouncement. But my worry about this fake news, how do they get onto the social media? People just sit down and cook stories. There was the other day, you remember the young lady who a professor of accountancy attempted to seduce at the University of Ife. It was on the social media that she went for a job interview, and she was told that we are not here to employ whistleblowers. And I was concerned, and I was trying to see how the lady can be helped in this kind of difficult situation. But you can hardly, you can't trace that story, and it's likely that
editorial now by it says eternal vigilance. That's it said that Port operators must strictly adhere to guidelines as we await 13 vessels from COVID-19 ravaged countries. Serious matter.
Yes. The 13 vessels are coming from 5 countries, and the 5 countries are very endemic coronavirus countries. Listen to this. The vessel has visited United States, it has visited Brazil, visited India, visited Spain, and United Kingdom. And these are very endemic. And so they are, and by the time they get to Lagos, 8 of them are expected to berth at Apapa, 4 will berth at Bonny, and 1 at Port Harcourt. So what the editorial is saying that the Nigerian Maritime Authority must make sure that the protocols for entry and disembarking from vessels are strictly adhered to, because we do not have the capacity to accommodate any reckless importation of cases.
Yeah, without meaning to be disrespectful to the sailors who are due to land on our shores, we all recall that years past, before the advent of aviation and flights, shipping, therefore sailors, were the most potent sources of disease transmission from one part of the world to the other.
Even in the 1929, fever,
the Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu. It was through ship then, because how many planes do we have then? So it was through.
I think the port health authorities must deploy immediately once these persons arrive, because at the onset of the coronavirus, we recall that there were a number of cruise ships in different parts of the world, and because some of the passengers had tested positive or were showing symptoms of coronavirus, a number of countries refused them, berthing rights in their various ports.
All right.
The latest protocol, however, is that before anybody boards, they must be tested to be COVID-19 free. Before they disembark, they also have to be tested.
All right, Bayo. Okay. We'd like to thank you for today's analysis. We hope to see you again tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And of course, we're going to take a break now. When we get back, we'll of course get into the conversation for this morning.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person, who affects 2 persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the 2 persons have affected 4, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Now believe this corona, you know, if you touch black man, if you like, gather the whole Niger, come together, make a cough. Nothing.
Which one you want?
Give me V&D.
I beg, get small pieces.
How much you want to give him?
Give me 200. Take your change now. You don't want your change.
My people, this coronavirus, na serious matter. May una wash una hands regularly. Come use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you no see water, wash your hand. Make una sit down for house. You see this virus, so e no get leg. Now we dey waka kurukere. No waka around, make the virus for die. No forget, say, the betterment of our people. Now for your handy day.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
For over 70 years, we've practiced healthy hygiene habits together. The world needs us to keep our fight going against germs. So let's wash our hands for 20 seconds regularly. Dettol. Protect what's worth fighting for.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long, live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, still fresh, and still fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
Enhancing national energy sector is the focus of our conversation this morning. And just before we do justice to the topic, here is Abdul Salam Jibril with the background report.
Energy plays a vital role in the economic growth, progress, development, as well as poverty eradication and security of any nation. Energy supports the provision of basic needs as well as productive activities, including agriculture, commerce, manufacturing, industry, and mining. In recognition of the immense importance of energy, the Buhari administration has taken several measures towards ensuring and enhancing the country's energy security. The 614-kilometer Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano AKK natural gas pipeline, the single biggest gas pipeline project in the country's history, is among such measures. The AKK gas pipeline, when completed, is expected to push power generation capacity to more than 10,000 megawatts. The AKK gas pipeline is also expected to support gas-based industries, thereby generating employment opportunities, contribute about 2.2 billion cubic feet of gas to the domestic market, and help with the revitalization of textile industries, which alone boast over 3 million jobs in the country. However, seeing that 85% of the power generation infrastructure in Nigeria is fossil fuel-based, experts are advocating integrating renewable energy sources such as hydropower, solar, biomass, and wind energy into the country's stream of non-renewable sources of power generation. The country is said to be blessed with 12 river basins, 33 billion cubic meters of surface water, and 156 billion cubic meters of groundwater. The potential of these resources for hydropower in Nigeria is huge. The International Monetary Fund notes that the country has about 2,600 hours of sunlight per year. If effectively harnessed, Nigeria's natural sunlight will enable the country become a key player in solar-based renewable power sources. The challenges in this regard, however, remains having the requisite technology to produce the solar panel cells that will enable large-scale utilization of solar power. How can the country effectively utilize renewable sources of energy generation and incorporate them into the already existing energy generation sources? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will speak to the issues shortly.
Many thanks, Abdul Salam Jubril, for that background. Now, joining us to discuss the issue in further detail, we'd like to welcome Dr. David Ige. He's a former Group Executive Director, Gas and Power of NNPC. He's now, of course, a gas consultant and CEO, Gas Investment Limited. Dr. Ige, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
And joining us from Lagos via Skype is a regular analyst on gas and electricity and indeed the energy matters in general, Associate Professor of City Law, Department of Jurisprudence and International Law, University of Lagos, Dr. Yemi. Okay, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
In the middle of your screen there, because we have two Skype connections, Dr. Yemi Oke is the extreme right. On the middle is Audrey Jo Ezigbo. She's president of the Nigeria Gas Association. She's joining us from Canada. We understand you're 5 hours behind us, so presumably, therefore, you're on the eastern border of Canada. Pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Gentlemen and lady, it's indeed a pleasure to have you this morning to see how we can do justice to this very important topic. I would like to start with Dr. David Ige, who, of course, is a gas consultant. I think what is in the air presently across the nation is the Akk Gas Project, which has just been flagged off a few days ago. Give us an idea of what that project is all about, respect to, adding up to the, energy need, of the country.
Well, thank you very much for that. The Akk project, first of all, is a major milestone for Nigeria, partly because it's been in the works for a couple of years. It's a major part of a bigger program, and for the first time, we're going to be having a pipeline that is going to traverse the northern part of Nigeria. It's a 600-kilometer gas pipeline, and it's going to be bringing to the northern part of Nigeria natural gas. The capacity of the pipeline is about 3 billion cubic feet per day at its peak. With that kind of gas volume, or even a fraction of that coming to the northern part of Nigeria, we can see significant industrialization taking place. We can see improvements in power generation and a major impact on the economy of the northern part of Nigeria. Like you know, Nigeria has 200 TCF of gas or more, and our gas is essentially worthless to us if the geographically dispersed industrialization potential is not leveraged. So this gas pipeline is actually a major enabler in that process.
Well, you say that it is part of a major network of gas pipelines we're supposed to have. Now, we do know that sometime in the past, that was under the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, there was unveiled the Nigerian Gas Master Plan. How does this fit in, or has that Gas Master Plan been revised? Because oftentimes we have a penchant, for revising projects and programs.
No, you're correct, but actually the Akk pipeline is a major part of the Nigerian Gas Master Plan. The Gas Master Plan as a project basically aimed to diversify the economy of Nigeria, leveraging natural gas. So in the plan, there was a major infrastructure blueprint that was advocated. The major part of that blueprint was the expansion of the Escravos-Lagos pipeline, which basically was to be expanded from 1 billion cubic feet per day to 2 billion cubic feet per day. There was also the OB3 pipeline, which was to connect the eastern part of Nigeria with the Western Alps pipeline as well, which also is under construction and due to complete this year. And then the third part of it is the Akk pipeline, which was to extend from the south, from Ajakuta to the northern part of Nigeria. And the fourth segment of that infrastructure blueprint connects the Ukwu end of Nigeria in the Akwa Ibom area to the Oben node as well. So when all these pipelines are completed, essentially you have the backbone for gas transmission across Nigeria. So yes, you're correct. This is still part of the Gas Master Plan and a very crucial part. And I think it's actually worthy of mention that the current management of NNPC could bring this to fruition at this point, because this is a very difficult time, like to bring new projects to life. But also, more importantly, recognition of the effort of His Excellency President Buhari, basically to make sure that despite all this being on the plan, it is actually coming to fruition now as a major project for Nigeria.
All right, let's go to Canada, where we have Audrey Joe Ezibo, president of Nigeria Gas Association. You've listened to Dr. Ige and his analysis. And of course, as we rightly pointed out earlier on, Nigeria has trillions of cubic feet of natural gas that has been underutilized for decades now. And with the action taken by the federal government with respect to the AKK, there is a high hope, that there's going to be improvement in this area. Now, to what extent can the utilization of our gas resources change our economic fortune?
Pardon me. Thank you very much. Good question. So like you've said and David has pointed out, we are a nation that has, by DPR's last pronouncement, 203.16 trillion cubic feet of gas. And the paradox with Nigeria is the fact that we are very resource rich, but we're energy poor. I mean, we're a country that has over 200 million people, and we are running around barely 4,500 megawatts of power, which is contrary to UN stipulations that you should have at least 1 gigawatt of power for every 1 million people. So ideally, we should be playing in the 200 gig range, but that's not the case now. And when we look at Nigeria as a country, what are our biggest challenges? High level of unemployment, a high level of deindustrialization. We've seen all the various aspects and sectors of the economy grossly impacted over the last few years. And this is where the gas narrative then comes in terms of how we build in-country value addition, gas-based industrialization, how best we leverage on our gas resources to ramp up the power base of the nation. And we haven't been doing that too well. Now, we must, of course, acknowledge that a lot of things are changing in the landscape. We are seeing a renewed focus on gas. We are seeing the government driving the 7 critical gas development projects. The AKK coming to the fore is quite exciting. We see what's happening with the Akk Gas Project and all that. But there's a lot of work to be done. We have to, if we even look at the whole issue of the pandemic and what it has shown us, is that we have to build our domestic markets. We are a country where we have over 65% of the population being below the age of 25. And then we have, I think as of 2018, unemployment being about 23.1%. And that's not good. If you even go into youth unemployment, we're talking numbers that are in 36, 37% range. How are we going to engage these people? It's by leveraging on gas to create industries, to create, to ramp up our power base so that we can, give expression to the entrepreneurial capacity that Nigerians have. So that's really what it is. And of course, looking at how we enable various sectors from the agricultural sector, the auto gas sector. I mean, gas is just such a robust resource that can be deployed towards different areas of productive activity in the economy. And I think that is the narrative and the discussion that we have to keep pushing, especially at this point in time. Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Audrey, for your initial comments. Let's bring in now Dr. Yemi, Associate Professor at the University of Lagos. Dr. Unpack for us Nigeria's gas master plan and how the AKK project actually takes off or fits into that gas master plan. Do you have any concerns?
Thank you very much. The AKK project is a welcome development, no doubt. But from the point of view of reality, I mean, talking about business realities now, I'm not as optimistic. One, definitely in the gas master project, there is need for our expansion of our gas infrastructure, and particularly to ramp up as the gas generation for purpose of the power sector, as Audrey rightly mentioned, no doubt. But I'm looking at it from a different angle. I'm asking about the bankability of the project. Will this project be, or does it have the capacity, is it capable of translating into another success story like the LNG. 2, is it viable? Is it viable in the sense that if gas is generated, if it's produced, who will be the off-takers? Who are we going to be selling this gas to? Along that axis, I don't see much happening in terms of profitability. And I want us to be careful as a nation so that we don't deploy projects for purposes of maybe certain emotional consideration. No doubt there's a fair need to increase the level of gas production in Nigeria. But if the target is gas production solely for the power sector in Nigeria, I will have my doubts because the power sector is struggling with a lot of things. What will be the unit price of gas so produced from KKK? We're still grappling with gas pricing as we speak. David will attest to that. There is no incentive for gas producers to keep producing gas without being able to recoup their investment with good yield. So we need to look at that angle. So I would rather look at the business side of it, the bankability issues involved in that, and if gas is produced through the AKK pipeline structure, are we able to channel the gas for targeted industry, power, manufacturing, immersion textiles, and at what rate? If the project be able to pay for itself, or we're going to be deploying from the pool, inadequate pool of our natural resources to get subsidized, unless we've been able to cross the T's and dot the I's, and that we're sure that this will translate into another success story like the NLNG template, then we really need to rethink, because it's huge investment. It's huge investment at this point in time in the history of the country. But are we taking the right step? Will the market be able to absorb it? Or we're actually going to start looking at how to, of course, export it? Another challenge is this. Where are we going to get the gas from? The gas essentially will come from the south. And you and I know the challenges of the zones where the gas will be produced before being channeled through the pipeline. A number of visuals, no doubt it's a good project, laudable project, and gladly is 100% financed by the contractor. So that gives me a bit of comfort. But then, are we able to get to where we're going by the template? So we really need to be sure that the market is able to absorb it for power, and Nigerians are still, assuming we have adequate electricity in Nigeria, are Nigerians ready to pay appropriate tariff for such? Because producing electricity from gas will definitely lead to jacking up of tariffs slightly. And we're still struggling with the issue of tariff, cost reflective and service reflective tariff. We've been playing with a number of terminologies: cost reflective tariff, service reflective tariff. And the power sector is still essentially problematic. I would rather would target manufacturing sector, the agri-business sector, the textiles, and other sector of the Nigerian economy. Then, as to power, if consumers will be able to pay commercially viable tariff rate for such electricity, because this is a huge investment and it must. Let me pause for now.
Yemi, okay. Actually, you say you're not pessimistic or something, but I'm hearing some of the challenges you have raised, for the first time, since this project was commenced. And of course, we have also known that it was conceived about 12 years ago. So the government at that time had something in mind, before it conceived the idea. But because, of course, As we know it, not all projects embarked upon by government, some of them are not even started in the first place. So people talk about generation of additional 4,000 megawatts of electricity from that. And all the states that the pipes run across have been jubilating, because it's going to add up to their economic activities. We have the domestic utilization of gas in some places, creation of 3 million jobs, rapid development of rejuvenation of the moribund textile industry, production of fertilizer, and drastic improvement in the petrochemical subsector. Don't they make sense? Because we're now looking at the viability of this project and the necessity for it and how it can impact positively on the Nigerian society.
Looking at it realistically, my point had to do with one, off-takers along the value chain. Other experts had also raised the issue. If gas is produced essentially non-associated gas, who will buy it? 1. 2, at what rate? 3, what is the population size of those who will consume the gas so produced along that axis? Of course, we'll generate electricity from it. We're also going to deploy essentially for LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas. Gas products are not cheap. They're not. And for as long as people have options or alternative to energy, they might not patronize expensive energy like gas and solar. 2, if you're embarking on the project for purposes of job creation where? In the textile industry. The textile industry, are they able now to rely on gas or gas-fired, maybe captive energy? You have gas and you can generate your own energy to manufacture. Now, of course, you have to factor in the cost unit. So if you're producing your textile at X amount of money, add your profit, add your cost, add all of that stuff, by the time it gets to the market, will they still be competitive at the rate? And are we going to add value and export? I really still need to ask a lot of practical questions, business questions, bankability questions. The gas so produced, because the industries along that axis, I'm not sure they have what it takes to patronize the kind of gas we're targeting from AKK. Of course, maybe we have to look at the industries around Abuja axis and further south, where the gas is actually coming from originally. So I really want us to think slightly deeper before we embark upon this kind of project. Will it pay for itself? I'm worried about the bankability issue, because there have been a number of issues that we got wrong. Of course, we have the refineries. We have a refinery in Kaduna. We have everywhere. We have all those depots. They're not serving the purpose. And they're actually recording losses. I will still see petroleum tankers moving products up north, up south, everywhere. So, we really need to be deeply consider this and be sure of the practicability and the viability of the project. It's a good project, but rather we go back upon it. It's very, very valuable.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yemi Oke, for the issues that you have brought on board for the conversation. Dr. David Ige, let's have your comments on this, because Dr. Oke has raised the issue of bankability of a project and therefore the economics of it all. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, Dr. Oke's concerns are genuine, right? But let me attempt to sort of calm those down. First of all, when you build a pipeline the size of AKK, you're not building for now, You're building a pipeline that's going to be there for 40 years, for 50 years. The Escravos-Lagos pipeline, which is our anchor pipeline today, was built 40 years ago, and it is taking time. So when you're building a pipeline, you're looking far in the future. Certainly, we don't expect the level of industrialization today in Kogi, Niger State, Kaduna to remain the same now as they'll be in 40 years' time. So there is a long-term view to a major pipeline project such as that. That's number one. Number two, a major milestone in this pipeline project is that like other pipeline projects of its size in Nigeria, this is actually private sector led. So you've got a contractor financing structure put in place. You know that it's not possible for private sector to finance a project that is not bankable. Yeah, that should give comfort to the fact that a lot of thought has been put into how do you make this bankable. Clearly, on the back of the supply, on that pipeline alone in itself, in the short term, you don't expect to have enough revenues to cover the pipeline. But the financing structure and the revenue structure for the AKK pipeline actually takes a pan-Nigeria view of revenues and transmission to backstop the pipeline. So there is a significant amount of thought that had been put into that. I was involved in that in the early stages, and I know for sure that we looked critically into the bankability of AKK pipeline. So the pipeline is bankable in the sense that if we grow the transmission capacity across Nigeria to about 1.5 to 2 billion cubic feet per day, which basically we're on track to deliver, clearly there is enough revenue source to meet that. But at the end of it is also the fact that the pipeline is backstopped by the sovereign guarantee, which I do not hope we're going to have to call on, all things being equal. So that, I hope, gives some comfort. And of course, the project has been linked to one or two anchor power plant projects in the north, in Abuja, Kaduna. I understand the issues about the power sector challenges now, but recognize that if these challenges are still there in 3 years' time, in 4 years' time, in 5 years' time, then we have a problem far bigger than AKK pipeline, to contend with. Then, Dr. Ke mentioned about the textile industries. Yes, the textile industry is a critical target for now because of the job potentials that industry can do. But the pipeline is going to support far more than the textile industry. The north is a food basket for the country, right? There's a lot of agro-processing potential that's going to come out of this. When the doctor says that who are the people going to use it, the way to look at it is that today, how much diesel is consumed in the northern part of Nigeria? Diesel is by far a more expensive fuel than gas. And so when gas comes in there, it displaces that kind of diesel consumption. It enhances the profitability of existing users of diesel, right? But also creates an opportunity for new people to come. It's the chicken and egg, right? Do you plan an industry to run on gas without a pipeline? A lot of people, now that they know that the AKK pipeline is going to come to the north, they can now start planning their industrial agenda as well to fit into that. So I think that, yes, we may have concerns now, but this is a project that goes far beyond those concerns. And it's our responsibility as stakeholders to begin to work towards mitigating any further concern that may arise from that. This project clearly will transform the northern part of Nigeria. But not only the northern part of Nigeria, a lot of other hidden things in this project.
I just wondering, tell us something. The pipeline starts from Ajaokuta.
Yeah.
Is Ajaokuta a gas production center?
No, Ajaokuta serves not. So you need to put in context the network of gas supply. So basically what we have is we have a couple of gas supply sources, most of which are in the Niger Delta. So the Escravos-Lagos pipeline system is largely fed by gas sources in Escravos, Warri, and that axis. But we also have gas supply in the eastern part of Nigeria, or the southeastern part of Nigeria, all the way from Akwa Ibom into rivers and so on. So basically, the network that we're building today is one that is connecting gas supply sources to gas markets, basically. So for example, Audrey mentioned that the Asa North project in Imo State is ongoing as we speak. So there are different sources of gas that's going to be coming all the way from Asa North, coming all the way from ExxonMobil, coming from OBOB, through the Obi pipeline into Oben and from there to Ajakuta and also from Escravos. So basically, Ajakuta is just a transit point for the pipeline, but the gas supply sources are a myriad of sources across the southern part of Nigeria, basically.
All right, let's return to Audrey. Audrey, you've listened to the two gentlemen, who have made a very valuable contribution to this conversation, and I guess there are also some, differentials, in terms of, understanding what this AKK is going to do for the country. We would like to get your own thought, on what AKK means in terms of economic viability, in terms of bankability, and in terms of course, as Dr. Ige said, a futuristic project, a project that we're looking for that will last for over 40 years, where more benefits will be driven from it.
Right, thank you. So here's the thing. I know that both gentlemen have brought very cogent points to the table in terms of the concerns about bankability, because you know that gas projects are really hinged on handshake. You expect to have a full market at the other end to ensure the bankability of your project. So when you're thinking about gas, you're thinking about availability, you're thinking about the infrastructure, you're thinking again about the commerciality of the supply. And so those are real issues. But like David pointed out, it's a long-term infrastructure project. Now, one of the biggest challenges we've had in Nigeria and continue to have to today is the death of gas infrastructure. So certainly the fact that there is a kickoff of this one is exciting, and everybody should be glad that we finally done the groundbreaking, and we expect the construction to commence as soon as is possible. But it's not going to be turning things around overnight, and it's very clear we have to understand this, that it will take its time to be constructed. It's going to take its time for the volumes even to ramp up to where we begin to feel a very significant impact in the long run. But I think that when Dr. Yemi was speaking, he raised some points around who are the off-takers. And so there's an imperative for us, beyond looking at the pipelines, the infrastructure, we need to be looking at the markets. So this is not just about the industries and the manufacturing concerns, though that's a very good point for us to be looking at. Not just the industrialization of the North, but even how industries across Nigeria have been impacted in terms of their ability to operate at full capacity or at reasonable capacity in the first place. So we have to be looking at the markets and asking, do we have a credible offtake at the other end? Do we have the kinds of volumes that would make sense, not just on the main pipeline, but the expectation really is that ultimately from the AKK, you may have other private investors that come in to do other distribution networks that tee off from those pipelines to go and feed maybe identified customers, be they commercial customers, industrial customers, whatever it may be. The idea is that, will the numbers make sense? And those are the things, the questions we're asking. Will we have the volumes? Will the numbers make sense? The same sets of issues that are currently plaguing the gas industry as it is, will those things have been resolved to create a more enabling landscape for anyone who is looking at how to tee off?
Oh wow. It looks like...
this is back.
All right.
AKK as a standalone project, we're looking at all the other ancillary issues that surround enabling any gas project, whether it's a distribution project, whether it's a transportation or a storage project that will kick off and tee off from the AKK. Do those things make sense? And if they don't, what are the imperatives for us to put in place before that project is completed? I also just want to touch also on the issue of the power sector. Yes, because there are many challenges in the power sector that we know about today, and tariffing is just one. There are other structural issues, there are just so many things, but tariffing is just one. But to say that the reason power continues to be important is because when we talk about gas in Nigeria, as we may know, gas is providing about 80% of the back resource for our power generation. Therefore, when we're talking about power, there's a direct effect on the gas industry. Okay, so when we're looking at a pipeline like the AKK, where we expect the bulk of the volumes in the shorter term to come from would be the power sector. Or we make sure that at this point in time, we start to also put in place those GBIs, the gas-based industries that can take large volumes of gas as feedstock, whether it is the polyethylenes and the fertilizer plants and things like that, if they make sense in that axis. So we still have to then look at what are the things that are not working in the power sector. In this time while construction is going on, can we make sure we address those things? Otherwise, it's almost like we are positioning this project to fail. So I think both positions are right. However, if we are working both sides in concert, the project is going on because we must ramp up infrastructure. And then secondly, we are dealing with all the other issues around the gas industry in Nigeria, trying to resolve some of those legacy issues and new ones that are unfolding on the commercial space. Then I think that there is a good hope for us to see for this project to not just see the light, but profitably so. I'll leave it at that for now.
We're not going to leave you alone now, Audrey. I want to return to you. Let's draw from an experience we know in the Lagos area. Because about 15, 20 years ago, we saw that gas infrastructure pipelines were being developed in the Lagos area, particularly to the heavy industrial areas, Oshodi, Apapa, Axis, and parts of Ikeja, I believe. And some of the industries have already tapped into the gas supplies to power their machines and equipment. Of course, I know of one newspaper house on the Apapa Oshodi Expressway that powers its plants, using gas, but there are always issues. Now, as a gas association, I wouldn't know whether this is part of your remit. What has been the evaluation of that, if it was a pilot scheme, or if it's a full market that is operating now, what are the issues arising from that? Is there customer satisfaction, or there are lessons that we can take from that to feed into the futuristic plans and issues that you have also identified with regard to AKK?
All right, thank you. So no, that was not a pilot project. In fact, what we have is that we have gas distribution pipelines that are crisscrossing the greater Lagos area, Ikorodu, Agbara, Ota, some areas of Aba, Port Harcourt. And so in the Lagos area, we had different types of industries, some of the bigger ones, some of the smaller ones who have connected to the gas networks. They've been using gas for over 22 years, thereabouts now. And the experiences have been different. So one, you are sure that there was a displacement of what was a very uncertain energy landscape before, where people were doing either diesel or mostly LPFO or at that point in time. And there was irregularity of supply. You could never tell what the price would be. So planning was an issue. There was a lot of pilfering. There were quality issues with the fuel. And gas came in and displaced all that. Gas is cleaner, is more environmentally friendly. It requires less maintenance, less cost, and so on and so forth. And because when it was introduced, it was benchmarked against the cost of LPFO. So there was also significant savings at that point in time. Now, things have evolved over time. There are sometimes constraints around supply, sometimes disruptions, but those disruptions usually come from the main line. As we know, on the Alps is the major supply line into Lagos. So sometimes you have either breakdowns or you have direct attacks on the main pipelines, a fire here or something like that, and we all have to shut down to make sure that you secure the industries at the other end. Of course, pricing has continued to be an issue with industries too, because when you get used to something, you can't remember what you used to pay. So gas continues to be less expensive than diesel, but because it has become what it's been used to, and because the price, there's an escalation factor, so you find that the price is continuously going up on an annualized basis. So there is a lot of complaints around gas pricing. And unfortunately, the reality for Nigeria is that we keep talking about gas pricing from the point of view of the export price of gas. We forget that when you're talking about domestic gas pricing, you are talking about a different kind of gas. It's not the same spec of gas. There's going to be processing, there's going to be cleaning, there's the distribution cost itself, there's this cost of security, which is huge. There's so many add-ons. Even the cost of regulation in the domestic space is the ridiculous cost, right? So you find that all in all, at the end of the day, you are seeing a gas price on the domestic front that is higher. That said, it is this same infrastructure provided by these companies that have enabled most of the industries to still be in business today, because their overheads have been grossly reduced till maybe in some cases 40, 50, 60%. Okay, so they're able to increase capacity, employ more people, and stay in business effectively. Many of them have ventured out to open even new lines of business, new factories, and so on and so forth. So that has been good. What will be the lessons going forward if we're looking at maybe doing a distribution along the AKK? First and foremost is that the reality is that we have to address I would say, first of all, the commercial agreements that are in place. You see, this issue of sanctity of contracts is a big problem in this country. When you bring private investors onto the table and then you begin to move the dice, you know, people contract for 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, and you begin to move the dice, and it's impacting on the investment landscape. It's a problem. So you want that sanctity of contract. People have a clear landscape. They are sure what they are putting on the table. They are sure what the expectations are. The pricing framework is clear. And then the markets, you have to understand that as the private investor, the volumes are what guarantee your investment. And many times those volumes, honestly, the market is not really there. When the market is there, sometimes the willingness of the markets to be responsible. So payment discipline is also an issue, even on the side of the market. I mean, there are just so many things that you see as a practitioner in that space. But we know that it can enable industry, and we know that there is potential for this to be a model, you know, what has happened in Lagos to be replicated all across Nigeria in partnership with private sector. But it has to be a more stable, more secure landscape. So I think that's what I would say for now, that it's a good model and it has brought a lot of value in terms of industrialization. And this is probably why a project, not probably, definitely why an AKK is important, because the same kind of industrialization we're seeing down in the West can also happen across the entire Nigeria. But we need that backbone infrastructure, and we need the molecules to move all over the country, and then the rest is for partners to come in and deploy even into the commercials, the residentials, and all the other avenues that are there for gas utilization. Yeah.
Let's go back to Professor Yemi. Okay, Professor, okay, you've listened to Audrey there. Of course, it's the head of the Gas Association of Nigeria, and of course, she has been able to do some explanations. Even people like me may not really follow because of the technicalities and what has been able to explain. But you may have been in a better position to understand that. But away from AKK and all that, because of course we have known your stand on AKK issue, let's see other uses or utilization of gas in the first place. People talk about the methanol, which is a substitute for petroleum, and the gas is a precursor for that production. Are you seeing a situation where gas utilization can be stepped up to the point where we can begin to, produce methanol to enough to even, compete with the petroleum in terms of using it for machinery and even automobile and other factory machinery? Is there a possibility, or can we begin to look in that direction as to how to use these trillions of cubic feet of gas that we have deposited in Nigeria that are underutilized?
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate you. Let me take up from where Audrey stopped. She mentioned a couple of vital issues that we really need to pay attention to as a nation. Of course, one of which is the gas-based industry, the GBI, along that axis is very important. She also mentioned the issue of pricing. Gas pricing is key. I know Dr. Gay also struggled with that fact as a stakeholder then. I mean, when he was engaging the stakeholders as to appropriate pricing. There can never be an appropriate pricing for gas in Nigeria. Nobody can pay actual value of gas because we know this an internationalized product and it's not cheap. It takes a lot of investment to get it on board. I think the surest way of ensuring appropriate utilization now, large scale, is power, the power sector. And I have my worries, like everybody. Most, if not all, power projects in Nigeria are still challenged. There are lot of issues. I was at a seminar in Kaduna, and I made a presentation of the judges' seminar, and I listened to some of the discourse, and I was scared that even if they have power to distribute in certain part of that country, that they use one outside language, Bashiga, that even if they supply electricity, they can still not access those homes, those neighborhoods to read their meters, even to collect electricity, to get them to pay for electricity consumed. Ditto for industries. And gas definitely will aggregate in the direction of need. It's need-based. You don't supply gas and expect or just do the pattern and expect it targets the movement of industries. No prudent investor will go channel the pipeline in the forest because nobody's going to consume it there. So gas will naturally aggregate in the direction of need. And that is determined by the congregation of the GBIs that we have in that axis. So the surest way of ensuring the sustainability of the project, talking of the AKK project now, is the power sector. And the power sector, as we speak, cannot pay adequately for gas. And I don't see that happening the next perhaps 10 years. Because Nigerians will probably resist any attempt to jack up tariffs. So then we have to target the industries. The industries that are now focused gas as their feedstock for purposes of manufacturing. Would the product be competitive at the end of the day? So we like 10, 20 years ago when GasLink and others started the pipeline around the Lagos-Ikeja axis, of course, because we had the kind of clusters around there to supply the market, and it proved viable. Gas producers like Audrey would definitely think twice before embarking on projects that will sink their money. So these are expensive money. Are they going to borrow money for the project at globally competitive rates in terms of dollars? And I said the project can pay for itself. So I agree that of all the sectors, the power sector is key. I don't even see much happening in terms of the LPG component of it on the long run, little for the agri sector.
All right.
We'll have to look at power sector and rejig a few things there to make the project viable. There is huge need there for the power sector, and AKK project is just the way to go. But then we need to put a lot of things on the table before it becomes a huge success like the LNG model.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Yemi. Okay. I'm sure that my colleague Kirian will return to the methanol aspect of his question and whether that ties up with the petrochemical value chain in gas production. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
And Kara shopping with the right place for. That one no fine. No, it's too dull. This one.
Oh wow, it's beautiful. Omo, this fabric. It gon' fade though.
Yeah. Look, make I tell you something. The new area Ankara, it go take good care of it. Right? Not lie. Not true.
And the price cheap. Try new Ariel on your Ankara and colors now.
For over 70 years, we've protected our homes against germs together. And now is no different. So let's disinfect and protect our floors and surfaces every day. Dettol. Protect what's worth fighting for.
At
as a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19. A corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
Nigerians, let us take responsibility. Stay healthy, stay safe, and curb the spread of the virus. Take responsibility. The coronavirus spreads from one person to another. Let us avoid crowd gathering of any kind for any reason. Take responsibility. Avoid traveling from one state to another during these lockdown restrictions. Obey all the rules that are put in place. Take responsibility. Stop spreading fake news and unverified reports about the coronavirus. There is no known cure for COVID-19. Take responsibility. Observe all the measures that can help stop the spread of the virus. Together, we can do this, but only if we take responsibility. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
All right, you're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, let's bring in again Dr. David Ige. Dr. Ige, I know that there are still aspects of the bankability of the AKK project that you may wish to elaborate on, but tell us something so that we can have a better understanding, perhaps, of the schedule. About 2 years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, we had the chairman of OSF, who was our guest on the program, and work had already started. I think they were doing excavation and pipeline as part of the AKK project. And here we are, 2 years down the road, President Buhari is flagging off the construction. How does this? I'm trying to make sense of the scheduling, and then what's the completion time? You have a sense of what's playing out?
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what also might have been referring to 2 years ago. Clearly, I don't think this project started 2 years ago because the financing was still being developed. But I know for sure now that things are now beginning, some pipes are now being put in place to kick off on an accelerated basis. Yes. So yeah, clearly the kickoff now coincides with when I expect real work to start on that project, basically. But in terms of completion time, the estimate given by the contractors is about 2 years. So I reckon that, and the project's been split into 3 groups, into 3 clusters to allow that to happen. So it's possible that within 2 years, segments of that pipeline will be ready. How much of it will be ready at the end of 2 years, I cannot say, but I believe that within 2 to 3 years, a significant portion of the pipeline will be ready, basically.
All right, and then bankability.
Yes, I think bankability continues to be a recurrent issue, but I think it's important to separate the bankability of the project from the project being able to deliver the potential in terms of economic development in the north and wherever it traverses. Coming to bankability, like I mentioned earlier, and as far as I recall, and I believe that's the case now, this project was conceived specifically around private sector financing or contractor financing. And in order for that to happen, it is actually predicated on revenues coming in on the entire pipeline infrastructure in Nigeria. What that means is that if you put a fertilizer plant in Lagos today and gas is flowing through the Escravos-Lagos pipeline, the revenues coming in through the pipeline for that project contributes to the pool of revenues that will be used to finance the AKK repayment. So it is a pan-Nigeria infrastructure revenue pooling, right, that has been used to do that. So it's not necessarily on just the projects on the pipeline itself, but pretty much any project in Nigeria that contributes to the pipeline is contributing into the pool of revenue. That does not negate the fact that there is a need for projects on the pipeline itself. If there is anything we all concur on, is that the power sector challenge is a major challenge. And I mentioned earlier, if in the next 2 to 3 years this challenges still persist, then we have a bigger problem as a nation. So clearly that problem has to be solved. Secondly is the fact that if you look at the gas master plan and the subsequent policy evolutions, the infrastructure is one part of many things that have to be done to make the sector work. Audrey mentioned some of them, the network code, the price, all of those things are all going on in parallel. So it's not one thing that's going to deliver the goods, it's a combination of things, all of which are ongoing. And then I'd like to come also to the point on methanol, which was raised earlier. I think this is a very, very valid point on methanol. You know, the gas policy in Nigeria envisions 3 key areas for gas. The first one is power, which we've talked about, and that's possibly 60-70% of the total demand space for gas. But the second and very crucial part is gas-based industries. And there are 2 categories in this. The regular industries that use gas as fuel, those are the manufacturing industries that you see regularly. But there are also industries that use gas as feedstock. These are the methanol, fertilizer, and the petrochemical projects. This consume a significant amount of gas, comparable to the amount of gas a power plant would consume. So they're big consumers of power. Methanol in particular is very important to us in Nigeria because, A, it has a lot of secondary potential. From methanol, you can get fuel that can be used to blend with PMS. And the government just approved the methanol policy lately, which basically aspires to about 15% blend of PMS in. So, you know, when you're in other countries like the USA, you buy fuels, they tell you, do you want to buy blended with ethanol or methanol? So that is one opportunity for methanol in Nigeria. The second bit is, from methanol, you can get olefins, and olefins are petrochemical products. So you've got MTO, methanol to olefins. This is a major opportunity space. Again, and you know, plastics are at the center of industrialization. So if we're able to couple our methanol agenda with a very viable secondary industry program, you can imagine the number of industries that will be catalyzed across the country. From methanol, you get acetic acid. There are so many other secondary products, industries that come from methanol. So to put in perspective, if you had a small-scale methanol plant, which has a feedstock of about 35 to 50 million cubic feet per day of gas, right, which is a relatively small amount in this case, right? The number of secondary industries that can come out of that alone, you can easily have hundreds of smaller chemicals industries, which will then become geographically dispersed across the country and so on.
For all of this to be utilized, I mean, because my colleague Kieran raised the issue of methanol, and I'm happy you have explained this. The anticipated benefits, do we have a business community that thinks along these lines, that says, look, these are potential opportunities for us to exploit, rather than just focusing typically on importation and importation and importation? Do we have business persons who can see these opportunities and therefore begin to plan ahead for them?
You're very correct, and that's why I said that over the next 2 years or so, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of advocacy, in terms of communication, and so on and so forth. The import substitution potential for us, if we can displace chemicals coming into the country for industries, is humongous, basically. So it's important for the Manufacturers Association, for example, to know that there's going to be a methanol plant coming on stream in the next couple of years. It's important for the policy on pricing to be strategic enough in order to make sure that when that methanol industry comes in, it's able to confer downstream benefits and pricing to the other secondary industries that are going to come in as well. So there's a whole lot of activity. There needs to be collaboration with the Ministry of Industries, is the whole range of things. And, you know, when Audrey talked about how do you feed secondary industries, this is the time for the state governors basically to start thinking about industrial clusters, industrial parks, along the trajectory of the pipeline, so that when secondary distribution companies want to build the pipelines, they're not snaking around the town looking for industries. The industries are organized, they're clustered, and they can come together. So we have time. We have 2 years now ahead of the pipeline being delivered for all the stakeholders to work together to make sure that this time around we are not we're not caught unawares when the pipeline arrives on ground and we get the benefit.
Yeah, I think I like that aspect, developing clusters and parks along the trajectory of the pipeline, because as at 2 days ago, many communities, were jubilating, because the pipeline is going to run across the communities. They're believing that there are many economic benefits drivable from that. Let's bring in Audrey once more. And I want to speak on the issue of methanol, because we're looking at a gas value chain now. Of course, we've been flaring gas for God knows how long, and that is not a good story to tell. Talk about methanol and other gas value chain that this country can benefit from. We've been talking about diversification of the economy. Here we are. We have gas, at a very high level. Yet, we are relying just on the PMS, or the petroleum, to, of course, feed the economy. What else can we do? Methanol, or what else? Just speak to that, and let's see how how much we can understand from your point of view what can be done to expand the horizon of the gas industry in Nigeria.
Right. Oh, thank you. So David has spoken to the methanol very aptly, actually, in terms of what the potentials are. So let me just take it more from the point of view of broadly what gas can do for us. And in fact, just to mention about methanol, we had a plan, I think it's almost 20 years old now. We're supposed to have had some methanol plant set up in the Lekki axis, that free trade zone axis that hasn't come to the fore to date. And if you could dimension the amount of revenues that have been lost, the opportunity cost of not having done that, it's really unthinkable. But it's good that we're bringing it to the table now. So what can gas do for us? Essentially, just about everything. Gas is an enabler of so many different industries. So when you're talking about gas-based industries, for instance, one of the things you look at is fertilizer plants. Nigeria has the potential to feed Africa. We know this. But what's the problem? We issues around fertilizer, we're still doing very subsistence level farming. So whether you want to look at it from the point of view of fertilizers, or look at it from the point of view of generating the kind of power that will enable us now get into proper food processing, food storage, and creating a big export base out of our agricultural resources, that is something we need to be looking at. We talked about transportation. So yes, there's gas you can use for your auto gas is a big industry, and now I'm happy that in the last couple of years, a lot more conversations are coming to the fore around auto gas. Given the population we have in Nigeria, given the amount of fleets, given our propensity to travel, we like to move around, then it makes sense that we should be able to knock off some of the white fuels and just bring in gas to be able to run, especially our fleets, our construction vehicles, our taxis, even our kekes. We see this in other countries. So that's a potential area as well. Now, of course, I don't want to talk about power again. The issue of the polyethylenes, you have to look at that, the multiplier effect. Because any one of these sectors you look at, it's not just the particular industry itself. And I think David has said this as well. It's that there is a creation of other feeder industries that support that value chain. So it just sort of catalyzes other areas of endeavor, other areas of production. Okay, so I think that whether we're talking about gas, LPG, or we're talking about compressed natural gas, or we're talking about LNG, we can just do so much with gas. We have hospitals, we have airports, we have huge hotels and commercial concerns that are busy burning diesel, whereas they could be running on gas. It's more efficient, it's less expensive, it's more environmentally friendly, and so on. So that if we look at that issue of displacement, the substitution concept, we see that we can literally be saving ourselves so much money and earning so much more, and then we can focus on exporting whatever liquid fuels that we do have. Okay, so these are just a few of the potentials that are there. Gas is that one thing that creates a multiplier effect wherever it's applied. And it's not rocket science. We've seen this done in so many other countries. If you look at Trinidad and Tobago, for instance, and look at what they have done with their natural gas in that tiny country, how many naphtha plants, how many ammonia plants, look at the volumes that they're exporting on a day-to-day basis. this is a huge revenue potential for Nigeria, and it's time that we did, the right sets of things in a very concerted manner. Again, things have been happening, but like David said, many things need to be happening at the same time right now, especially because we are not in the place where we can, just waste time anymore. Our economy is not in a good place. So we need to catalyze the economy, driving natural gas in every area that we can to just change the narrative about Nigeria once and for all. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Audrey. I mean, we're talking about utilizing gas for transportation purposes. That is through the CNG, compressed natural gas. I recall that the former Minister of Petroleum, Mrs. Diziani Alice Maduke, did say some years ago that they have started a pilot scheme of commercial vehicles using gas in the Edo area, particularly around Benin City. I wouldn't know whether that was monitored and whether the program is still ongoing or whether it's been expanded. So it doesn't become one of those fits and starts that we normally would have. An idea comes, is generated, after a while, apparently it's abandoned, because there are new helmsmen who are in charge. But we'll return to you presently. Let's take some of the tweets that we have now, Kieran.
Okay, let's begin with Delejak Solomon. Truly, there's no doubt that the present power energy crisis afflicting Nigeria will persist unless the government diversifies the energy sources in domestic, commercial and industrial sectors and adopt new available technologies to reduce energy wastages and to save costs.
Chris Simeon tweets, the federal government should come up with concrete policies that would explore the energy sector and make customers have access to power at affordable price, both in urban and rural areas.
Energy security is vital to national development vis-a-vis the availability of natural resources for domestic consumption. Access to cheap energy has become essential to functioning of modern economies. In Nigeria, we are blessed with petroleum products that is free from sulfur. Hence, we have to utilize these resources effectively.
An increase in the cost of energy can put people into energy poverty and leave them choosing between paying for energy or other essentials such as food. Energy insecurity also leads to power cuts.
Okay, Festus Akimbe, energy security should be a key priority for the federal government because prosperity depends on it. Sadly, the importance of energy security to economic growth has been taken for granted for decades. Government must invest in broad, diverse and flexible energy system if we must have energy security.
Law Alpha say the only way energy can be secured and effectively managed is to declare a state of emergency of the power sector as it was done in telecommunications, bringing on board competent international companies while government regulates.
Law Alpha C, sorry, that's what we just read. Yes. Motana Farouk, Nigeria's energy security can be enhanced through a collective commitment devoid of corruption and sabotage.
Adeniro Adetayo, the country needs an inclusive energy policy. The policy should be comprehensive enough to address issues such as security, and the policy should be economically sound, technologically suitable, and politically acceptable and environmentally sustainable.
Abdul, the AKK project should be seen as one of the most important projects of this administration. I hope a lot of study have gone before embarking on this project. I expect a lot of industrialization to follow at the end of the project.
Cecilia Okoroma, whatever investment that will bring about reducing gas flaring in the Niger Delta and accelerating infrastructure development in the states, and therefore employment creation and also improved power sector, should be applauded by Nigerians. Indeed, the AKK project is great. I just wonder, I just would like to, Audrey to respond to this as president of the Nigeria Gas Association, so that as Dr. Yemi has advised, while we are applauding the AKK, we also need to be realistic. NNPC some decades ago had what it referred to as the butanization project, which was intended to accelerate utilization of LPG and therefore, of course, have positive environmental impact so that there will be less reliance on wood fuel and other forms that devastate our environment. Suddenly, that butanization program failed. We were told some time ago that there are plans to bring back the butanization programs. Are there lessons to learn from those programs of the NNPC with regard to butanization so that the AKK and indeed other aspects of the gas master plan don't go the same way?
If you ask me, the biggest lesson that we should learn is that there are some things that we should either let the private sector do or we run them by PPP models. That's really what the biggest takeaway is. And I say this because as we're discussing those botanization plants, we have also seen private sector players who have found the money and made the investments in similar plants across the country. And we even have so many more that are coming to the fore as we speak. They are working, the investments are coming in a timely manner. And this is what the objective was in the first place. It's like
all right. Sorry, we're frozen there. Dr. Yemi, okay, still with us via Skype from Lagos. I would like you to speak to this aspect of the botanization program that failed because it was supposed to be a catalyst for increased use of LPG. LPG standing for liquefied petroleum gas. That's the common gas that you and I use for cooking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The botanization project saw to the coming on board of 11 plants in Ilorin, in Kaduna, a number of places in 11 locations in Nigeria. But as Audrey said, that was public driven. It was driven by the government and it was challenged. Then at some point, they were also thinking of the cylinderization project. Cylinderization project was a sister project to ensure that the LPGs are packaged in Nigeria. Or that also failed substantially. But I think the sector has gone beyond that because a lot of private sectors are now in botanization, including cylinderization. They've taken over the LPG. I don't think we have much by way of challenges there. But I think what really is the challenge is clusters, industrial clusters and parks. And the good thing about the AKK project is also the fact that the pipeline is also intended to serve as a feedstock for power and new petrochemical facilities, which is, of course, planned along Abuja, Kaduna, Kano, and Katsina. But when will those come on board for purposes of the AKK project? Because I said the gas project should aggregate in the direction of need. It should be a model. The model will have been like we have these clusters and parks in Kaduna, Katsina, Kano. Then we are channeling, reaching out through gas pipeline, AKK model, and the rest. But not that there will be AKK project. Then we now start to look for clusters and parks. That to me is one of the challenges. Of course, also Audrey also pointed that out. But as she said, I would rather the private sector will be on the driving seat, driving all these initiatives, particularly botanization, as they are doing in the case of AKK, which is 100% contractor finance.
Well, gentlemen and lady, I'm not sure we have time to take your closing thoughts to Dr. Ige. What we have time for now is to appreciate your insight on this conversation this morning, and also thank you for coming. Dr. David Ige, the former Group Executive Director, Gas and Power, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, and now gas consultant. We thank you again for coming. And from Lagos, Dr. Yemi Oke, an Associate Professor of Energy, Electricity Law, and Head of Department, Jurisprudence and International Law, University of Lagos. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. And Vasca from Canada, Audrey Jo Ezigbo, we thank you immensely for coming. She's the president of Nigeria Gas Association. Thank you once again. Now, let's take sports.
Sergio Ramos scored the only goal for a second consecutive game as Real Madrid beat Atletico